Every franchise has its fair share of plot holes and continuity errors, especially when it's a franchise that is over 25 movies and shows deep. Even though Kevin Feige does his best to keep the MCU very tightly connected with no contradictions, there is still the occasional plot hole that slips through the movies. So here are some intriguing plot holes that we found in the MCU. Let's start off with a simple one. How did Tony Stark not find the Hydra files? In the first Avengers film, after Tony Stark and Thor get to the helicarrier, Tony Stark puts a device on Nick Fury's computer that sends Jarvis through all of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s files. He said that it will allow him to dig up every dirty little secret in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s past, and that S.H.I.E.L.D. won't be able to hide anything. But in Captain America the Winter Soldier, Natasha Romanoff digs up all of Hydra's files from the S.H.I.E.L.D. archives, decrypts them, and leaks them to the public. So the question has to be asked, how did Tony Stark not find those when he sent Jarvis into S.H.I.E.L.D.'s files? The simple answer comes down to the way the MCU is planned out. Captain America the Winter Soldier didn't release until after the Avengers, and the writers of the Winter Soldier didn't take a small, short scene from the Avengers into account when they wrote the destruction of S.H.I.E.L.D. from the inside. I guess we'll just boil this one down to Natasha Romanoff's spy skills being better than Tony Stark's technology.
Thought we wouldn't notice, but we did.
Next up, how is Thor vulnerable to electricity? After Thor crash lands on Sakaar, he is immediately approached by scavengers, one of which shoots Thor with a net that electrocutes him, and this gives the scavengers time to beat him up. And later, Valkyrie comes to save Thor so she can take him to the Grand Master. Valkyrie throws a device onto his neck to prevent him from escaping. The device electrocutes the wearer with the press of a button and stuns them. Thor is stunned not once, but 6 times by this device throughout the course of the film.
Man, he's a fighter.
But Thor is the god of thunder. Not only does he control lightning, but he can literally shoot it out of his body. Electricity flows through him constantly. So how is it possible for him to be defeated by electricity? And to make it even more confusing, during the fight with Hulk, Thor unleashes his true powers and has lightning all over his body. But the Grand Master shocking him does damage? Also, how did the massive amounts of power flowing through Thor in that moment not short-circuit the chip on his neck? All in all, this is just a confusing moment that the writers didn't think about because it made for a funny joke. Let's move on. But first, if you're enjoying this video, return the favor and hit the subscribe button to help us out. Okay, the next plot hole we found is when Wanda didn't notice Pietro's new look. This is a newer one. In WandaVision, Pietro Maximoff is played by an in-universe character named Ralph Bohner, played by Evan Peters. Controversy or theories aside, the character's appearance is a bit confusing. The final scene of episode 5 shows an argument between Wanda and Vision being interrupted by the doorbell ringing. Wanda insists that she has nothing to do with that, and in the Halloween episode she is confused by how Pietro is there. So it pretty much confirms that Wanda had nothing to do with this. So how come she instantly recognizes the man at the door when she opens it? Wanda is shocked to see her brother and enjoys spending time with him in the next episode, but she doesn't seem to make any mention or even notice that he looks different even though he does. She asks what happened to his accent, but she never asks why he looks different. If she had nothing to do with it, which we know she didn't, then she wouldn't have known why Pietro looked different. But instead she thinks nothing of it, and both the characters and the audience are supposed to act like it's normal Aaron Taylor Johnson Quicksilver, even though it's not. Now, how many of you have wondered about this next one? How does Ant-Man and Yellow Jacket's mask work? One of the things the Ant-Man films are known for is their inconsistent laws of physics. Hank Pym says that Pym particles reduce the space between the atoms to make you shrink, but they don't actually change your weight or density. But these rules seem to switch on the fly. In the scene where Scott first puts on the suit, he is heavy enough to dent the top of a car and break the floor, but he can stand on top of a record and get sucked into a vacuum cleaner without either of them breaking. Then later in the film, he can ride an ant and get on people's shoulders without them feeling it. But then in the final battle, Yellow Jacket gets hit by a train 10 times his size and the train falls over, doing no damage to Yellow Jacket. And then Ant-Man leaves his regulator in the quantum realm when he grows, but then he shrinks again a minute later and doesn't get affected by it, even though Hank Pym said that tampering with the regulator messes with your ability to shrink and grow normally. That's why Hank couldn't shrink between the molecules, and that's why Janet was able to. But it didn't affect Scott Lang. And then in Captain America Civil War, Scott Lang grows to 65 feet to unleash Giant Man. He's able to rip an airplane wing off and crush trucks and everything else that comes with being a massive giant. But if shrinking to the size of an ant makes you stronger, shouldn't growing to 65 feet make you weaker? Ant-Man's physics are just super confusing and beyond explaining. Luckily, Ant-Man and the Wasp and Avengers Endgame didn't acknowledge the science of Ant-Man. It's a problem that just needs to be swept under the rug and kept there.
I'm gonna make some tea.
Is S.H.I.E.L.D. a secret or not? In Iron Man, no one seems to know who S.H.I.E.L.D. is. In Thor, Jane Foster says she's never heard of them, and Eric Selvig treats them like they are an urban legend. But then in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, it is revealed that they have a massive building in Washington, D.C. that serves as their headquarters, with offices for Director Fury, Alexander Pierce, and it ends up serving as Captain America's home base when he's on missions for the government. The building is really easy to spot because it isn't exactly hidden, so it seems like everyone knows about S.H.I.E.L.D. Then Ant-Man began with a flashback that showed the Triskelion in the year 1999, so S.H.I.E.L.D. has been a known organization for at least 15 years. But 5 years earlier, when Captain Marvel takes place, it seems like S.H.I.E.L.D. is a secret. But if you consider Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to be a canon show, then it makes even less sense because some people like Skye know about S.H.I.E.L.D., but others like Mike Peterson have no clue who it is. So Marvel, answer a question for us. Does the world know about S.H.I.E.L.D. or not? Are they a secret or not? Tell us! When did Zola find Bucky? Captain America: The Winter Soldier gives us a short flashback that shows Arnim Zola finding Bucky Barnes in the snow after his fall and dragging him to a lab where he was brainwashed, given a metal arm, and made into Hydra's assassin. But the timeline of Arnim Zola doesn't seem to add up. Bucky fell from the train on the way to arrest Arnim Zola, and one of the Howling Commandos was the one who breached the front car to get Zola. Then the film cuts to Zola in a cell where Colonel Chester Phillips gives him a very calm interrogation. Arnim Zola was then arrested and in SSR custody for a few years before he was recruited to help build S.H.I.E.L.D. But in the flashback, he finds Bucky in the snow at the base of that mountain with blood pouring from his arm, meaning that the wound is still fresh. So how was Arnim Zola in two places at once? How was he both in prison and finding Bucky in the snow at the same time? Bucky definitely didn't sit there for years waiting for someone to come along, and the Howling Commandos definitely didn't let Zola go and then go capture him off-screen later on. So Arnim Zola must have the ability to teleport because being in two places at once is not possible. But somehow, he pulled it off. Doctor Strange is a person of interest. Sticking with Captain America: The Winter Soldier, when Cap, Falcon, and Black Widow get Agent Sitwell, he tells them about Zola's algorithm and how it detects any people of interest who could be a threat to them. One of those names is Stephen Strange. But Doctor Strange doesn't take place until after Captain America: The Winter Soldier, meaning that Stephen Strange was still just a surgeon at this point and not the master of the mystic arts. So how does the algorithm recognize him as a person of interest? The explanation might actually be simpler than we think. It could just be assumed that the algorithm finds people who have the potential to be a threat in the future, and it just assumed that Doctor Strange would be a threat. But even then, how is the algorithm so good that it is able to determine that a random neurosurgeon will later have limitless power? It's just a small plot hole, but a plot hole nonetheless. Do you have any suggestions to help us Marvel fans understand these plot holes? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you.